pusong tanggapin ang ating panauhing pandangal, the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Cooperatives, Iginagalang Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr.
Maraming salamat sa pagpakilala ng ama ng lalawigan, ang butihing gobernador Willie C. Alvarado. Sabay na isang napakalaking karangalan at napakahalagang tungkulin para sa akin bilang inyong halal na senador at Pangulo ng Komite ng Kooperatiba at tagapangulo ng Komite ng Lokal na Pamahalaan sa Senado. Ang makasama kayong lahat ngayon sa Gawad Parangal sa mga natatanging kooperatiba ng taon 2014 na idinaraos ng ating pamahalang lalawigan ng Bulacan sa kanyang buwan ng kooperatiba at pangangalaga. We are here not only to extol the virtues of the 12 outstanding cooperatives in the province of Bulacan for 2014 on the occasion of the Bulacan's Cooperative and Enterprise Month. By and through their example, we showcase today. This event serves as a fitting occasion for the people of Bulacan to recognize and reacquaint themselves with the socio-economic value and importance of cooperatives in our lives as citizens. The Constitution and our laws recognize the potential of cooperatives as engines of economic growth for the people in our country. In fact, they are no different from other business organizations such as corporations and partnerships in that they are envisioned and designed to operate for purposes of financial and economic gain. However, there are certain principles that set uniquely cooperatives apart from other organizations. Number one is the principle of self-reliance and self-help, whereby the members themselves, both the capital contributors, the patrons, the clients, the customers, and the very beneficiaries of the services and income of the cooperative. Number two, the principle of openness, voluntarism, and personal and democratic control as embodied in the one member, one vote, non-discrimination, and lower quorum rules. Number three, the concern for the community or social responsibility. Ito ay malaking pagkakaiba dito sa puntong ito sa mga iba't mga korporasyon at iba't ibang mga negosyo. Because we must know that with cooperatives, social responsibility is mandated by law. Unlike in corporations, partnerships, or even sole proprietorships, where social responsibility is nothing but a moral obligation and is not enshrined in the law. Lastly, social justice, which is the end-all and be-all of all the underlying principles of cooperatives and which is mandated by no less than our Constitution. These principles substantially distinguish cooperatives from other business organizations. These same principles should then guide our understanding and our treatment of cooperatives. More importantly, these principles should primordially control and influence the way that our government attempts to regulate our cooperatives. Let us focus on the most important principle of social justice. The principle of social justice is self-evident and lies in the single most important legal consequence under the law: the grant of tax incentives and other favorable terms and conditions upon cooperatives. Under the Cooperative Act, registered cooperatives that transact and deal exclusively with their own members are not subject to any taxes and fees imposed under the Internal Revenue laws and other tax laws. This is couched in very clear language, and there is no room for interpretation. Whereas registered cooperatives that transact or deal with non-members or to the general public are granted limited tax exemption and other privileges, the extent of which is determined whether their accumulated reserves and undivided net savings go beyond 10 million pesos or not. As you all know, the matter of tax incentives is being administered by our mighty Bureau of Internal Revenue o ang ating kawalihan ng rentas internas. The current practice is that before cooperatives can avail of the tax exemption under the law, they must be first issued the Certificate of Tax Exemption by the BIR. Before that, they must secure a Certificate of Good Standing from the CDA, subject of course to prior and faithful submission of documentary requirements by the cooperative. I may not totally agree with the way BIR administers these tax incentives, but anyway, that is the current practice. Umanhin na lamang po kung maghahayag ako ng aking totoong saloobin sa bagay na ito. Sa paningin ko at ng mga nasa cooperative sector, hindi maganda ang sitwasyon ngayon sa pagtrato sa sektor ng kooperatiba dito sa ating lipunan. First, there are about 23,600 cooperatives registered now with the CDA, 91% of which are micro, small, and medium categories. 9% are large cooperatives. Tapos, ang nabigyan ng Certificate of Good Standing ng CDA ay 11,600. Pero, ang pinakamasaklap sa lahat, 6,295 lamang ang mga nabigyan ng Certificate of Tax Exemption ng BIR. Kung mapapansin natin, mababa na ang bilang ng mga registered cooperatives, mas mababa pa lalo ang nabigyan ng Certificate of Good Standing ng CDA. Tapos, lalo pang mas kakaunti ang nabigyan ng BIR ng Certificate of Tax Exemption. This all means that our registered cooperatives get significantly reduced by 50% at every important milestone in the quest for tax-exempt status. Ikumpara natin sa mga korporasyon at mga partnership. Alam nyo ba na mayroong mahigit na 400,000 na aktibong korporasyon na nakatala ngayon sa SEC? Samantala ay 2,000 naman ang registered partnership. If you ask me, this is not a good sign if we take into account the social objectives mandated by the Constitution and the Cooperative Code. To put it another way, the cooperative movement is not being sufficiently nurtured and effectively developed contrary to the intent of the law. In fact, no less than the CDA has made the stark observation that our cooperative sector remains unsupported and underdeveloped. Bakit naman ganun? What is the reason for this perception? Could it be that cooperatives are really not a viable and profitable economic option? Remember, cooperatives have been granted tax exemption privileges by law, whereas corporations and partnerships do not have such privileges. Could it be that there is an inherent flaw in our system that tends to undermine and discourage the formation and operation of cooperatives as business organizations? I am inclined to believe that it is the latter, as the real cause is underdevelopment of our cooperative movement. If social justice is the main principle that underlies and drives the entire cooperative movement, then it follows that our law on cooperatives, Republic Act 9520, or the Philippine Cooperative Code of 2008, is a species of social legislation. And being social legislation, then the Cooperative Code should always be interpreted liberally in favor of cooperatives and strictly against the government. Dapat balansehin natin ang ating pagnanais na mangolekta ng buwis at ang ating pagpapalago at pagpapatibay ng ating mga kooperatiba. Sabi nga, sa saligang batas, dapat equitable ang ating sistema ng pagbubuwis. Our system of taxation should aid in the promotion and growth of our cooperatives and should not stunt and arrest their development. In the cooperative sector, the power to tax should not be used as the power to destroy. And the government should not kill the goose that lays the golden egg, to borrow the familiar words of our Supreme Court. Sa palagay ko, ito na ang pinakamahalagang issue na dapat nating masolusyonan sa lalong madaling panahon kung tunay nating gustong palaguin ang ating mga kooperatiba. At makakaasa kayo sa tulong ng inyong lingkod upang mabagyan ito ng lunas. Siyempre, kasama at katuwang din natin ang CDA at ang ating mga lokal na pamahalaan. Sa katunayan, ito mismo ang ating ginagawa sa Senado. Inaayos natin ang sistema at pinapaganda pa natin lalo ang ating cooperative code at kasama ang CDA at ang BIR sa usapang ito. Indeed, there is validity to the CDA's observation that the law can be exploited by unscrupulous cooperatives to enter through the back door of business tax exemption. In addition, just recently in the Senate, we have uncovered the modus operandi of some criminal minds using farmers' cooperatives as fronts in order to import rice and other agricultural products, in short, committing the act of technical smuggling. But then again, these are not sufficient reasons to altogether tighten our regulations of cooperatives to the point of their asphyxiation and total prohibition. This poses a continuing challenge to our regulator, the CDA, to improve our overall system and prevent the recurrence of this very unpleasant and regrettable scenario, and to avoid even the slightest blemish on our cooperative sector. Let me remind everybody that the Philippine cooperative movement's survival depends on how our entire system makes of it. On the citizens level, the Filipino, it depends on whether cooperatives genuinely remain to be a viable, practical, and a profitable socio-economic venture in their eyes. Bakit nga ba natin pagkakabahala bumuo at maging miyembro ng isang kooperatiba kung hindi naman ito'y makakatulong sa ating kabuhayan at kasaganahan? Fortunately, we have before us 12 outstanding cooperatives of the province of Bulacan, which serve as our models and inspiration to continually strengthen and fortify our belief in the socio-economic potential of cooperatives. If we can replicate their exemplary efforts and accomplishments in the province of Bulacan, the cooperative sector will continue to survive and to thrive around the country. Then our country will be strongly convinced that cooperatives remain as worthwhile means of achieving and boosting economic self-sufficiency, thus contributing to local and national development. Sayang at walang kinatawa ng BIR sa ating pagtitipon ngayon. Kung sa bagay, mabuti na rin na walang BIR. Kung hindi, baka naman kasabay na ng award o plaque na ibibigay natin sa mga outstanding cooperative, ay abot na rin ng BIR ang kanilang letter of authority at saka sa PINA para sa mga natatanging kooperatiba. Kawawa naman ang ating mga kooperatiba. Masisira naman ang kanilang araw. Sayang naman ang kanilang moment. Pero maganda rin naman sana nandito ang BIR kung ang kanilang tunay na pakay ay upang iabot ang pinaka-inaasam na Certificate of Tax Exemption. Nothing could be more meaningful and heartwarming token of appreciation for our outstanding cooperatives than that. Sana. So, I congratulate the 12 outstanding cooperatives in the province of Bulacan. Sana maging inspirasyon kayong lahat sa ating mga kababayan at sana dumami pa at lumakas pa ang inyong mga hanay. Hanggang dito na lang po. Maraming salamat sa pagkumbida ninyo sa inyong lingkod.